one of our customers in Europe was getting more traffic from Yandex.ru, which is like the Russian Google, than ChatGPT. All the ones I saw were ChatGPT. Now, what's interesting is the conversion on that traffic was really high, but we're talking, if someone has 1 million sessions a month, we're talking like 37 referrals from GPT. So it was surprising to me, but from pure referral traffic, it is like a fraction of a fraction.
Hey everyone, welcome back to E-commerce Toolbox Experts Perspectives. Today's episode is a special one. We're sharing a conversation I had as a guest on the Cocktails in Commerce podcast. We talked about e-commerce analytics, the real-world impact of answer engine traffic, and my journey building Noibu to help merchants eliminate issues that harm traffic, conversions, and bounce rates. Tune into to discover top lessons I learned from e-commerce leaders about AI, attribution challenges, and commerce data strategy. Huge thanks to the Cocktails in Commerce team for having me on. It was a fun and insightful conversation over a paper crane cocktail. So pour yourself something nice and let's dive in.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Cocktails in Commerce. My name is Brian Walker. Today I'm joined by my co-host Bill Friend and our guest, Kailin Noivo, to mix up an NA cocktail and talk about e-commerce analytics and what's happening for real with answer engine traffic and impact today. Kailin is the co-founder and president of Noibu, where he leads the company's mission to help e-commerce businesses identify and eliminate both small and large problems that impact traffic, conversion, and bounce rates. Since launching in 2017, Noibu has grown quickly into a trusted platform used by many leading global retailers and brands. Prior to founding Noibu, Kailin worked in software engineering and product roles that gave him a first-hand view of the hidden costs of undiagnosed website issues. So let's get into it. Pour yourself something to sip along with us and enjoy our fascinating conversation with Kailin.
I'm broken-hearted with all that this entails. It takes some concentrated drinking to keep me on the rails.
Kailin, so great to have you on. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thanks for having me, guys. This is awesome. I'm a long-time listener, first-time caller.
Oh, I love it. All right, Bill, before we get into the conversation, what are we mixing together with Kailin today?
All right. Well, first, give you my welcome, Kailin. Looking forward to the conversation here. Let me introduce what we're drinking. Like we've done many times with other guests, today we're enjoying an NA cocktail. And in the world of NA spirits, the number of options around what you can find to really build something is just exploding right now. It's just been in the last year alone. And not just the volume of these products, but their complexity and the mouthfeel. It's really, for those of us who do drink alcohol, it's really the approximation is getting pretty good, I have to say. So in the last 2 Cocktails in Commerce episodes, we did a couple different NA drinks and we built those drinks around just a single NA spirit. Today, we're actually using 2 different spirits together, and partially because the spirits are getting that good and they can really amplify each other. But also we're using an inspiration from a cocktail that has 3 different alcohols, and it's called the Paper Plane, which we actually wrote about in a very early version of the newsletter, actually over 2 years ago now.
Shocking. Time is going by way too fast.
And it's, for those who might know this or might know this expression, it's the first time, I think, where we use the phrase, fuck Aperol.
Yes. Yes.
Awesome.
Which I'll leave Brian to add some commentary around that after I finish here. But the spec for a Paper Plane calls for bourbon, lemon juice, a sweet Amaro called Nonino, which I highly recommend for people just getting into Amaros. And yep, Aperol.
Well, we're going to clarify that
That's
later.
True.
We'll just park that one.
Brian will have some commentary on that. But we're actually calling this the Paper Crane, and partially inspired by Paper Plane, but also Brian just got back from Japan and paper cranes are kind of thing. So
I happen to have my little paper crane here. I'm not putting it actually in the drink because
you're saving it.
This is, well, yeah, this is kind of a precious little thing. I'll talk more about that later too.
And then we're of course we're including lemon, but we're also adding some maple syrup to bring some richness and further balance it out. And then lastly, an NA whiskey to give it some depth and oak that you would normally expect. NA whiskey, which is a bourbon in the case of Brian and I called Free Spirits Bourbon, it actually has a certain spiciness. So that was one of the reasons why I think for us, at least, the maple syrup worked really nicely to kind of balance things out. But I'm not sure how that worked for you, Kailin. The product you're using, which I found in a spirit shop nearby, is kind of described to be smoky and peaty, like a Scottish single malt whiskey, which is not what ours tastes like, but hopefully it still works. So I'm curious to hear what you think.
Yeah, honestly, it's really good. Not usually a huge drinker in general, but I like me a good cocktail in the right mood and the right vibe. So it's like end of day for me here. And no, it's really, really solid. And I've been giving it some good sips, and I'll probably have to take it home so I don't sneak it into my coffee in the morning.
Oh no, you can sneak it. It's NA. It's fine. You can put it in your coffee in the morning. I use an NA Amaro called Lucano. It's their NA version of their Amaro, and I'll add it to my coffee sometimes. It's nice.
Once in a while, maybe once in a while. The holiday seasons are coming up, so got to prep the stomach for the holiday Christmas party season.
Yeah.
When you look at that bottle, you showed us what that looks like. It looks like an alcohol bottle. So if you're in the corner pouring something in your cup, people are thinking you're drinking alcohol, probably.
It's true. It's true. Got to set a good example around the office, you know?
Bill, you alluded to it before, but I think the best thing about this NA version of the paper plane is it has no Aperol in it.
That's funny.
You know, I'm going to point people to that Substack from way back in June of 2023 if they want to understand the whole fuck Aperol thing. But as an NA cocktail, this is really good. I would say we used the kind of the concept of the paper plane, and it is equal parts, which is awesome because it makes it really easy to mix. You don't have to worry too much about getting everything right. You just make sure it's the same. The nice thing about it is it's delicious. It's very refreshing. It's not exactly a paper plane. So we're not like literally mimicking the alcoholic cocktail. We've made something new using that concept and that spec, but it's very good. And in the case of using the Free Spirits bourbon, the NA bourbon that Bill and I are using, like the capsaicin kind of just comes through a little bit. The maple syrup gives it some nice kind of silky mouthfeel, which you kind of need to kind of compensate for some of the things like Amaro Nonino. And it gives it a little bit more depth as well, which would be lacking, I think, if we weren't using it. And it's a nod to you up there in Ottawa, Kailin. You know, we're using maple syrup, you know, something close to home from up there. But I think it's time to get into it here with our first question. And Kailin, as you know, we have a standard opening question on the podcast. It may be the toughest one during the whole show. Bill's grandson, Kai, is now 9 years old. Kailin, you need to explain what Noibu does in a way that Kai can understand. And as always, Bill will be judging on the rigorous winner chicken dinner scoring methodology and scale. All right, Kailin, give it a shot.
Yeah. I mean, put simply, Noibu enables people to find what they're looking for when they're trying to shop online and execute a transaction without any issues. If you ever see your dad or your grandpa grab an extra cocktail when trying to shop online, it's probably because the site they're using doesn't use Noibu.
All right. Anything else you want to add, Kailin, or is that the submission?
The submission is that we're an experience monitoring platform, best of breed for commerce, and we enable people to sell more through our platform and make their experience the best it could be.
All right. I love it. Succinct, to the point. Bill, how did Kailin do?
All right. Well, the cocktail reference got you some extra points for sure. But I'm guessing you don't have a 9-year-old at home. He's not really somebody who's shopping online, but we'll give you a chicken and dumplings, hearty and satisfying. Good job. Thank you.
There we go.
I love it.
That's awesome.
Very good.
Well, hey, listen, I want to dig in a little bit around the founder story. We always like to, when we have a founder on the show, hear a little bit more about the inspiration, early days, the core challenge you were looking to solve, and your key insight on how to solve it. And maybe you can throw in a little explanation how the name ended up being so much like your last name, but not actually your last name.
Yeah, I mean, like many founding stories, we started off young, dumb, and broke, not understanding what we wanted to do, but we thought we were smart enough to build a company.
Isn't there a movie called Young, Dumb, and Broke? Oh, wait, I'm thinking of something different.
Probably. There definitely could be a founder story for sure. Yeah, we wanted to build a VR shopping platform. I don't know why. We thought VR was going to pop off. This was 2017. And during that process, we actually met a lot of really cool e-com folks. And the conclusion from that journey after 2 years was that people need help optimizing their website. And it's really complicated for non-technical people to understand how to drive more conversion on their website, whether it's removing friction in the form of bugs or performance or just changing the UI UX to get out of your customer's way. So we kind of fumbled around in 2017 and 2018 and early 2019 trying to build this VR shopping dream. And we pivoted in late 2019 to actually an error monitoring product, which is the first product we brought to market. We grew really quickly in 2019 and going into COVID, being one point we're the 7th fastest growing company in all of North America, 2nd in Canada.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. So we had a really, really, really good growth spurt as we're kind of tailing off into COVID. And now we're a holistic digital experience and monitoring platform, which covers multiple categories. And we work with some of the largest merchants in the world, like the Cartiers, the Guesses of the world, basically helping their teams sell more online.
I love that you sort of uncovered a problem and learned about it. Obviously, it was something you were also wrestling with. And I love how that kind of evolved. But I'm curious to also kind of just ask, after that sort of point, I'm sure you learned and evolved quite a bit along the way. I'm curious what kind of stands out to you. What are some things that really jump out that you sort of uncovered after you made that pivot and kept growing, kept evolving, adding new product?
I think holistically, there's two things. Obviously, I learned a lot more than two things, but two things that stick out right away is number one, what got you here typically won't get you there. So doubling down on what you did to get to a certain point is good until it's not, and it usually hits you in the face. So you kind of have to have foresight, which is something that when things are going well, is hard to have. If it's working, why would you stop? So that's a big, big, big lesson. And then another one is you think the problems get smaller over time and easier to solve, and it's actually the complete opposite. The problems get harder to solve and bigger as time goes on. And you also, with each stage of the business, you realize that you actually know less than you did before because it's kind of like a new challenge. So some of the founder and journey paradoxes, and now we're almost approaching 10 years on the journey, 7 years on this product. And we feel like we finally are kind of getting a full grip on like how to operationalize and run a business. But yeah, I mean, candidly, it's all consuming, and yeah, it definitely humbles you. That's for sure.
We're at this really interesting, very pivotal time in digital commerce and online business with sort of this paradigm shift that's happening out there in the market, new technology coming on. You're talking to a lot of e-commerce teams, a lot of e-commerce leaders, cutting through all the noise and the stuff that, is sort of occupying LinkedIn and the media. What's really on the minds of e-commerce leaders? What's keeping them up at night?
Yeah, I think it depends on the stage of the business. So a lot of people in e-com, they grew their teams, grew their tech stack during COVID, and they're really just trying to digest that. And then you start to pair that with raising interest rates in 2022 and like softening consumer demand. A lot of people kind of had projected for their demand and kind of got over their skis. And we're kind of in the tail end of digesting that. 2-3 years ago, a lot of our customers, companies, digital teams were getting cut in half every year. We're kind of not seeing that too much anymore. People have kind of digested the teams that they had before. So I would say top of mind is it's not just growth, it's profitable growth and good fundamentals and unit economics and not having to raise capital and all of that. So that's probably top of mind with the executives. And then another really critical conversation is around consolidation. They want to simplify, they want to cut down their tool stacks, they want to cut down their team. And then you have the big X factor right now, which is what do we do with AI, right? Does it help us write our product descriptions? Does it replace humans? Is it going to be the new shopping parameter? So I also run a podcast. and I get to talk to a lot of really cool people. And on the back of that, I get to have a lot of convos, and there's some very common themes that are emerging. No one knows what the fuck's going on with AEO.
Yeah.
Candidly, and no one knows how this is going to shake out. And people are trialing different things, and they're getting different degrees of success.
When it comes to the impact of the answer engines and agentic shopping, I'm really curious to hear what you're seeing happening on the number side of things. You collect numbers and analyze things on behalf of those customers. What are you seeing with the numbers?
So I'll approach this in a three-part answer. I was at a Shop Talk Vegas earlier this year, and I saw a talk, and the person was speaking as if, and they're insinuating that like 30% of their traffic was coming through GPT. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. If that's true, that's going to change a lot. Then I read a report about 6 to 8 weeks ago from a third party on this. And the report was kind of like, hey, we're seeing overall website traffic is flat, and the search engine referrals have a high converting and they're growing in numbers, but it didn't talk about total percentage of traffic from that. It was kind of like elusive.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have our own first party data, right? So we understand where traffic's coming from, direct, indirect, if it's coming from Yahoo or some other search engine. And when we looked at the aggregate data, I was quite underwhelmed. And what kind of stuck out to me is that one of our customers in Europe was getting more traffic from Yandex.ru, which is like the Russian Google, than ChatGPT. I didn't see any from Claude. I didn't see any from the other search engines. All the ones I saw were ChatGPT. Now, what's interesting is the conversion on that traffic was really high, but we're talking, if someone has 1 million sessions a month, we're talking like 37 referrals from GPT.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So it was surprising to me. And it is, don't get me wrong, it seems like the conversion rate's pretty high when it's there. And we don't know what the in-product stuff is going to look like. But from pure referral traffic, it is like a fraction of a fraction.
I just want to pause here for a second because, I mean, you're collecting a lot of data. This is statistically significant, right? This is not some aberration. If you're aggregating a view on the traffic from the answer engines, right, that's meaningful. We may see that changes during the sort of the core of the gift purchasing, Black Friday through peak, in early December. We might see some behavior changes as people start to use these things for gift ideas and so on. But I think the numbers demonstrate that we're still very early, right? We can be excited about the opportunity, the potential, the transformation, but we have to be really cautious, recognizing there's a big changes in customer behavior here. And, it might take a little bit longer to play out than some think.
And it seems like there's a lot of progress on the checkout flows right now. Big question there with right ahead of Black Friday and Cyber Monday is, will we see an uptick? But to your point, we're not that far along.
But even the checkout today is really on one website. So we just have to be really cognizant of that right now. I'm curious though, Kailin, how you see this. Do you kind of then, when you're sort of talking with e-com leaders, hearing something perhaps similar to what we're hearing, which is they're really viewing this as, another potential channel. It may add to some of their complexity around how they distribute and market and where they're getting orders from. But right now they're sort of parking it in like, well, this is just another of the many channels we have to kind of be in and serve. But this isn't some radical transformation in user experience or fundamentals of the business, and the website still matters. Is that the kind of thing that you're hearing, or maybe are we missing something?
Yeah, and I don't want to diminish the opportunity of it because, who knows, right? Like this could not age well, and in 6 months, 90% of your traffic's coming through it. But if you just look at the current market data that I'm seeing first and third party, it's very, very tiny. And I think there's a chance that it runs into the same challenge that we ran into with VR shopping, which is what I like to call the vaguely futuristic fallacy, where it sounds cool, it sounds good in theory, and it sounds vaguely futuristic. But do you know anyone who actually does product discovery in ChatGPT?
Well, I do, because I do it. But
so then there you go.
Yeah,
maybe the answer to the question, right? Like, if I'm like, hey, I'm going to look for a pair of sneakers, I'm not sure that that's the place I would go today. And maybe that behavior is going to change over time. One thing that is interesting to understand, which I think is a market opportunity and something that we're going to dive into as a business, is when someone does find you, how did they find you? What did they look for?
Mm-hmm.
How can you influence that? I think that's a market opportunity. But yeah, it's super interesting.
I happen to fall in kind of the middle here in a way, right? I do think there will be a significant transformation from consumers interacting with answer engines and as those evolve into AI companions and so on. But even if you just look at the numbers today, like shift in how we, find information online and do work and complete tasks and get ideas and all these different things, it's already radically changed. And it's that people get more and more comfortable interacting there and starting different sort of research journeys there. Shopping is already a component of that. And when consumers have been asked about it, they're generally really positive about it. And the forecasts, I think, are kind of building off of that. So I do think there is a big transformation here, and it's different than VR because it isn't a completely new channel of interaction where there's a high cost to entry of VR headsets and all these kinds of things. It just blends into sort of the routines and habits of consumers using the web that they're on, the web browsers and everything they're on already. That said, we have to recognize, and your numbers demonstrate it, that this is very early and it may not play out as fast or in the same way we expect right now. It may be a 3 to 5 year kind of transition we're in. And even then, the website and sort of the existing fundamentals are still going to be really relevant, is how I see it, right? People are going to be landing on your site, validating their purchase, et cetera, and not necessarily doing checkout through the answer engines and companions.
Yeah, one thing I kind of noticed the other day, I was trying to use ChatGPT to shop for something that I guess I'd call it fairly generic. And it ended up coming back with Amazon and Walmart and
all the same people. Yeah.
When I'm looking for that, I can go to those sites and I'll have a better experience by going to those sites. But so I feel like there's categories it's going to play out different. Like the shoe example is good. There's certain brands you have affinity for. Yeah, let's just get a broad look across all the places I could get that. But like if it's going to just keep taking me to a marketplace that I could just go to myself, it's not a great experience.
I'm curious. Let's keep pushing on this. So I agree. It's a channel. It's a growing channel. It seems to be a very high converting channel when I see the data, but it is such a small, it's genuinely an insignificant source of traffic for our customers today, but it's probably growing, right? Makes sense. I wonder, just approaching it from first principles, what problem is this going to solve? Like I could see this in a situation, and I actually tried it and it didn't work, unfortunately. One of the light bulbs in my chandelier in my house broke, and I had no idea where to get the light bulb from because it looked like, I don't know, it was a weird looking light bulb. So I took a picture of it and I'm like, hey, can you find this? So that use case from first principles makes sense. Or, hey, I want the cheapest version of this specific tire. Makes sense. I'm curious, for us though, in the context of luxury fashion and a lot of the customers that are non-commodity products, I wonder, is someone going to take a picture of their whole wardrobe and say, hey, what black dress should I order for this upcoming event? That's where I struggle with the use cases. But maybe you guys have thought about it a bit more, or you guys have some different use cases outside of, I want this type of tire that's the cheapest, or here's a picture of something, I don't really know where to get it.
Yeah, I think that, it's certainly, if you know what you want, kind of like you may not gravitate there, but a lot of just everything is going to gravitate toward interacting with answer engines and generative AI kind of from the jump. It's going to be the first thing you think of doing is typing in or speaking to or what have you with that answer engine or companion that you're using for everything. So that's one component. So in a sense, it's the new browser or the new Google. You could think of it that way too. And Google obviously will be one of them. The other component is when you're kind of investigating something or it's something you're curious about or you're interested in, and then you want to know, well, what would I use to do that? I'm kind of got some woodworking related projects that I want to do. I'm not really a woodworker. And there's this technique I saw in Japan. I'd seen it before, but I got really interested in. And I was like, so I was interacting with ChatGPT to kind of learn more about it and all that on a train ride. And then naturally I asked, well, what would I need? Tools? What would you recommend? Modern tools that people would use to do this? What's the technique? And so on. That led me down a path to, well, here's 3 products that people involved in this actually recommend on Reddit and what have you. Because obviously I asked for sources and I'm like, great. So that's an example of like something I didn't know anything about. And yeah, pretty soon I'm ordering a $40 like torch gun, that runs on propane tanks and whatever. So I can do this burning charcoal wood preservation technique that I got curious about. So that's, just another very different kind of use case where it's like maybe more akin to your chandelier, right? Where you're trying to solve a problem. And I think as the tools get better and better, those kinds of things will matter. I think for people who just have very routine or commodity type tasks that they're trying to fulfill and so on, this is where the AI companions will come into play. The more you share with them, the more they'll know. And wouldn't surprise me is if, I'm getting reminded that I might want to order some things, or maybe I decide I just want to automate it and it turns into a subscription and it's sort of fulfilled in a little different way through some sort of marketplace model with the supplier. Those kinds of things will happen. How fast is really, in my opinion, the question. And there's going to be some surprises along the way, things that we have a little bit of a hard time maybe predicting exactly how it'll play out.
Yeah, one other example on the apparel side, I was thinking when you mentioned your point earlier, Kailin, is the ability to describe like an event or something you're going to and some general preferences and getting some recommendations. We've actually seen new technologies that specialize in being able to recommend and serve up results with a description about, say, for example, I'm going to Coachella and I'm a certain age, and you give it just some input points, and it doesn't matter what's in your wardrobe or these other things, but it basically creates a result based on synthetic data and other things that you're just not going to get from a typical search engine.
Bill, I think your analogy would feel a lot more grounded if you said Jazz Fest instead of Coachella.
I'm not going to buy something new for a...
You got that covered.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, a good one. I'm going to be drinking canned cocktails when I get there because it is a thing.
Yes, it is. Well, with that, I'm going to suggest we take a break and we refresh our paper cranes. Bill and I are going to check our pockets and make sure we have enough change to pay the bar bill.
There you go.
Brian, I should just mention, maybe our listeners notice our breaks are getting a little shorter these days. We used up all our Lalo ads. So if anyone out there is thinking they want to sponsor, we're not likely to say no.
All right. Our commercial is a commercial for commercials. Okay. Well, with that, we'll be right back with the rest of our conversation with Kailin.
If you're listening to the e-commerce toolbox, you're entitled to a podcast exclusive website audit. Go to noibu.com/podcast-audit for a free scan that uncovers the hidden friction blocking your conversions and shows you where you're leaking revenue.
Welcome back, everyone, to our conversation with Kailin Noivo.
I wanted to dig in a little bit more on the e-commerce traffic patterns that you're seeing separate from the answer engines. I think we dug in on that, but I'm curious outside of that, and more broadly speaking, what are some of the more interesting trends you're seeing, and what do you think brands should be paying attention to?
Broadly speaking, ROAS has been flat or declining for the last couple of years, meaning that ads are getting a bit more expensive, conversions dropping a little bit. So overall cost of acquisition is pretty high. A surprising segment that's been growing like crazy is native mobile apps.
Interesting.
So people who build their own apps, that traffic is growing. And we're actually seeing situations where people's web traffic is compressing 20 to 30%, but their app is growing 40%. So like net, they're growing 10.
That's really interesting. Is that because they're getting people to do that through direct marketing as well? So like they're text messaging, they're emailing, driving people to kind of an app experience. And so that's a component of that perhaps?
One thing that, and I'm not like an expert on this, so I don't know fully why the strategy, but I know that when iOS pushed that big update that kind of messed up a lot of ads a couple of years ago, people wanted basically to be able to send push notifications, and push notifications through a native app is like the most converting thing. So I think that's a big reason why. Basically, you get to control your promotion. Like it's basically like an ad for free, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, it's a way to engage a customer, and they may be more prone to like, oh, why do I have 2 messages on my whatever app, And so they might casually engage with it, whereas they might just ignore the email altogether.
Exactly. Makes a ton of sense. That's one of the patterns that we've been seeing. The other one is people are really trying to do a lot more earned media. So they're trying to do a lot more organic, some of the micro influencer stuff. Actually, I had someone on my podcast who built a D2C brand in 2016. Between 2016 and 2019, 2020, you could just rip ads and they're super profitable. You could just fund your growth through ads, but like it kind of became a shit show during COVID. And now it hasn't really, it's like a perfect cocktail of like, well, actually, not fun, but it actually is rising customer acquisition cost with like a slightly decreasing conversion rate. And like those things are kind of working against each other. And yeah.
That sounds like a shitty cocktail, not a perfect one.
That's true. That is true. It's a perfect shit cocktail of bad performance.
Well, I think what's really interesting about what you shared there, I think it's good news for brands, right? And it just illustrates retention marketing tactics and sort of doing a better job of communicating with your existing customers you've already acquired and kind of closing the loop and driving them to an experience you can control. And frankly, all these other trends that we're talking about, factor into this point I'm going to make too, which is like, that's the fastest path to profitability right there for every brand anyway, right? Versus continuing to pay to reacquire the same customers. Once you get them, right, you put them in your closed loop, direct communication, and driving them into an experience. And that's good news, right? That we're starting to see that, and that consumers are also getting some value out of that experience. That's good.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Kailin, as AI tools drive potentially more of this offsite research and discovery, and some of these transitions in the customer experience come into play, what does this mean for e-commerce teams trying to track attribution and understanding kind of the changing nature of their business, what's influencing conversion and impacting customers? You're right in the heart of that problem. I'm curious, what are some of the things people need to be thinking about so they can kind of understand and track what's happening? And also, you're very involved in helping people understand when things go wrong and what to focus on and address. Like, how does all that kind of factor in when we think about these shifts in the user experience?
Yeah, I think it's all going to come on the back of consumer demand, right? Does the consumer want to discover and interact in this new channel? And the more the answer becomes yes over time and that grows, then the more influential it will be. I think starting at the basics, people likely want to understand what percentage of my traffic is coming from there. What's the conversion rate? I don't even think candidly that people have a really good answer to that right now. And then from there, what are people interacting with that is influencing them finding you? And then how do you capture more of that demand? But if you look at the Google ecosystem, you can search for search terms, how often a search term comes, and then where do you rank? There isn't really the equivalent infrastructure in these LLMs. It's just like a black box. And no one really actually understands how to influence it. So I think there's going to have to be some innovation there for people to be able to capture more demand. And then at the same time, we don't know how much demand is created, right? Like we don't know how many people are looking for a specialty project that is then going to recommend that they buy a bunch of tools, right? Or the perfect outfit for this scenario. If you already know the brand that you're looking for, why would you go to a search engine like a ChatGPT? Why wouldn't you just go to the website? So I think there's some questions that people don't fully know yet. I think the first part is just driving clarity in analytics. What are they doing on the website? What are they clicking on? What's the conversion rate? And then from there, providing tools to influence driving more capture of the demand that's already there, if that makes sense.
Totally makes sense. It would also be really interesting to see the pressure put on the answer engines to share more data. Whether or not they can easily provide it or not is a different question. But I think, as those become commercial channels, as potential advertising and other things come into play, we'll see there may be pressure on them to share more to help marketers understand, how to market into that channel or how to improve their performance. So it's going to be really interesting. And I just want to add one other thing, which is I think it would be really interesting to see what ChatGPT thinks Bill's perfect Coachella outfit would be, actually. I might have to.
I don't think you want to see that, actually.
You might be able to even generate an image.
Exactly.
That you can do.
We might need Nano Banana for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we kind of already started talking a little bit about the next question I was going to ask you, Kailin, but just in terms of maybe what else in terms of the role having clean, trustworthy analytics play in navigating this next phase, especially as other channels emerge and old ones evolve. How do you see that playing out?
I think this is a Bill Gates quote. I think people always overestimate what happens in a year and underestimate in 10. I actually genuinely believe that. I think analytics, everyone's trying to rush towards what I call the magic machine, which is you ask it anything you want and it gives you the perfect answer. It's the 10 best PhD analysts you've ever had. And I think that is a good vision to have, but I think we're potentially years away from that. It's something everyone should work towards. Everyone who is trying to work on this in a horizontal way. And what I mean by that is like servicing multiple industries, B2B SaaS, insurance, that. I think the amount of integrations, the data cleansing is going to make it really hard and put a lot of the onus on the customer. And I think what Shopify got right that most people got wrong is the customer is lazy and doesn't want to do, not lazy, but they don't want to run an IT shop. Like if you're running Shopify, right, or a platform, you kind of don't want to build a data science team to like instrument your data together to then make it machine readable.
Totally.
And I don't see how that gets solved horizontally, I guess, if that makes sense. I think there's going to be so much last mile tuning. And I don't want to turn this into commercial into what we're doing, but I genuinely think the analytics space is heading in that like magic machine, ask me anything space. And on the back of that, I think if you're horizontally positioned, it's going to be really hard to do a good job solving it. And I think the customer is going to expect that.
Well, I agree with the horizontal component because I think, commerce is just different. Digital marketing, digital commerce, the metrics, how they're collected, right? And the sort of the complexity of the channels and the number of channels and so on all add up to that. And I do agree that a generic sort of analytics solution, just like a generic LLM, is not going to be able to deal with it. I agree with that perspective. Kailin, put yourself in the headspace of a brand or retail digital commerce leader here for a minute, the kind of people we've been talking about. You're building toward the sort of a vision and a plan, for the next 3 to 5 years of commerce. Most people aren't really planning that far ahead, but you're kind of like doing some long-term planning, right? You're trying to think about what bets you're going to make next year and what you're going to put out there even further. Where should they be placing their biggest bets? What are the emerging problems that you think will matter the most to solve?
Yeah, I think it's business dependent, but I think one thing that retailers need to do is make sure that they own the customer journey as much as possible. So they own the asset, they own the media, they own the distribution channel. I think that's going to be more and more important. And I think a lot of businesses that built their business on Amazon realize that, hey, Amazon releases a private label and they copy your top important product and then they undercut you because they don't have to pay customer acquisition fees. So they literally can save all the marketing costs. So I think the most important thing is to make sure that you grow your direct to consumer channel and you put the least amount of space between you and your customer.
I completely agree. Anything else that you would want to prioritize as an e-com leader, making sure that your team had the best of in order to be successful?
Yeah, I think honestly, I would leverage AI as much as possible internally. And what I mean by that is replace redundant tasks with AI automation, have people work on higher leverage tasks. And I think at the end of the day, I would make sure my data is structured in a way that I could actually query it, because I have seen some pretty crazy things when the data is structured in the right way. Things that were honestly truly feel like magic are things that we're seeing internally when we're testing these things, and things that we want to start offering to our clients next year, where it does feel like a magical experience.
Yeah. And you're right. And it's on the back of clean, effective data pipelines, right? Normalized and made effective, and training, models, whether they be commercially available models or models you're developing yourself, which a handful will do, to digest, interpret, and bring context to the table. I agree. Well, Kailin, it's been wonderful to have you here with us today, but it's time for the last question, a standard one here on Cocktails and Commerce. The next time you walk into a bar, it could have been a successful event, maybe successful customer meetings, you've got some good vibes going on, you're with your team, but it's been a long day. You're pretty tired. You're going to pop into the bar before dinner. What cocktail are you going to order?
Oh, that's a good one. I'm going to go whiskey sour with the egg.
Okay.
All right.
None of this no egg shit. With it.
You're talking our language. I love it. Well, with that, we've reached the end of another Cocktails and Commerce podcast. Kailin, I want to thank you again for joining us here today. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you guys so much for having me. This is great.
And I'd also like to thank everyone who's subscribed to Cocktails and Commerce. If you haven't subscribed to our Substack, I'd encourage you to. That's where you'll find all our industry analysis and, of course, more on cocktails and every podcast that we release. With that, Bill, take us out.
Thank you, Kailin. It was a great conversation. Until next time, be well, drink well, and here's to good business. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
The e-commerce toolbox Expert Perspectives is brought to you by Noibu. To find out more about Noibu and how we can help you debug your e-commerce site and rocket your revenue, visit www.noibu.com. That's Noibu.com. And then make sure to search for the e-commerce toolbox Expert Perspectives on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else podcasts are found, and click subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Noibu, thanks for listening.